How great would it be to get up close and personal with the beauty industry heroes we love and admire, and to ask them, how did you learn to do what you do? I'm Chris Baran, a hairstylist and educator for 40 plus years, and I'm inviting all our heroes to chat and share the secrets of their success. Well, welcome everybody to this week's episode of Headcases. And today's Headcase is a third generation hairdresser. He's been a salon owner and as an international artist for over 40 plus years. Catch that, 40 plus years. He's traveled over 3 million miles doing that while he's been educating in the hair industry. He's a philanthropist and visionary and uses the proper ingredients to protect clients and hairdressers' health. He started his own brand, Surface, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. For those of you who know Surface, you'll know who this is. But for the rest of you, you've got to wait till the end of this intro. His mission was to start a brand that encouraged personal health, respected the earth, and helped others to grow. And most importantly, what I love about him is he's a family man and he's a friend. So let's get into this week's Headcase, Mr. Wayne Grund. Mr. Wayne Grund, I should be shot because, we have not talked in a number of time. I'll just leave it at time right now, but you've always been at the top of my brain because we've had so much time together. So Wayne, I just wanted to say welcome to Headcases, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you on here.
Thanks, Chris. Absolutely a pleasure too. And it's always great to be able to chat with our hairdressing world with you, my friend.
Yeah. And I think the big part of it is what I was saying in the introduction. I was so excited about is because we've got so much history in the background. Because we work together and we've been, I can't remember how many, 9-10 years we traveled the road together. And I want to talk a little bit more about that, and we can talk about some of the stuff we went through and some of the stories, funny and otherwise, that we can talk about. But what I always want people to know at the very beginning is because I don't know you've got your own product brand. I don't know how people wouldn't know you, but let's just say for the 3 people in the world that don't know who you are, tell us just a little bit about your hair story, like how you got into it. What's the story behind that got you here?
Well, my hair story, Chris, was I'm not even sure if you're really aware of it, but it was a family story. I was raised in Watson, Saskatchewan. It was at that time a town of about 400 people. My dad was a barber. And if you've got 2 barbers in town and one's got really good looking hair and one's got a bad haircut, which one do you want to go to?
Oh, well, that's a damn good question.
Yeah. Well, you want to go to the one with the bad haircut because the other guy did it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that story led into something Dad would tell all the time. And I was 13 when he says, "Okay, you're going to cut my hair." And that's when the barber scissors were about the 7-inch long ones and the clippers, and I really enjoyed it. And I would start working even part-time after that in the barbershop. And my grandfather barbered, obviously my dad. I've got an uncle who's a barber. I've got 3 aunts who were hairdressers. And so I was there at Kelsey, pretty much the same school that you went to there when I was 17.
Yeah.
And met the love of my life when I was in Watson High School, and she was at her dad's drive-in in Humboldt, popping popcorn. And we ended up moving back from the city to Humboldt and started my first salon in the back corner of an auto body shop. It was exactly 100 square feet.
Which auto body was it?
The Humboldt Auto Body, right downtown. There's a little.
Was that the Ford one that was there?
No, not the Ford one. That was across the street from it. But it was Humboldt. It was called Humboldt Auto Body. There was a sporting goods store.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, right across from your mom's.
Yeah.
Right across the street from your mom's salon. So, and it was 100 square feet. You opened up the door in the wintertime and the fog would just blast in at you. My wife and I, the only thing we had to our name was a 1975 Camaro, and the bank loaned us $3,200 against it.
Yeah.
And we had a mutual friend of ours. I was very fortunate. He was my sales consultant, Art Erickson.
He was mine too.
Yeah. And, him and his son-in-law, they're distributors for us in BC now, Vantage.
Yes, and I love the both of them. And Mark, they
such great people.
We always called them Mart and Arg instead of Art and Marg, but they were just. I think anybody that they touched really had a successful business, and primarily because of them.
Yeah. And it's tying a long story as short as I can with it. The very first education I went to was my dad. My dad was really connected.
Yeah.
And in fact, the Beatles in the end of the 60s and 70s almost put my family out of business. Because if you were a barber
Oh,
and you had long hair,
yeah.
Dad had such a thriving business, and all of a sudden, people aren't getting their hair cut for months and months and months. But he went into the city, Saskatoon, took an evening class with Bernie Zdebski, Dick Hagel, might be
Right.
names that are even familiar to you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and learned how to cut long hair. Well, before you know it, my first haircut I ever did in Dad's barbershop was $1.75 with it. And then I even was in Dad's barbershop at 3.25 when I was 17.
Wow.
But again, tightening that story up, Dad became very financially successful again because haircuts jumped in price. Half the ladies in town were coming into the shop to have
Yeah.
their haircut. But between that and Art Erickson,
Yeah.
I just became enthralled with education,
Yeah.
and that is just became the real key to success for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
think
then my
that
first city salon I bought from you.
that's right. And that's why, like, I'm sure people listening that are out there, they're going, well, they're talking a lot about back and forth, but we all both had history in Humboldt, Saskatchewan. That's kind of when we moved from BC with my mom after a divorce, not mine, but hers. And we moved there, and that's where all of this link up started to happen. And then you bought the salon when we moved to BC, and but that Saskatoon era, that was, I mean, Saskatoon, for little as many people would know, but wouldn't you agree? Saskatoon was a smoking area in Canada, a hotspot for artists, for happening things that were going on right then and there. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, Chris. And I got a little bit of a thought process behind it.
Yeah.
Saskatoon was just big enough, a large university town, that
Mm-hmm.
people tried harder.
Right.
And when you were from a major metropolitan area, you thought, oh, gee whiz, I got it made.
Yeah.
And from a smaller town, which I enjoyed living in a city of a couple 100,000 with that, is that people just tried harder.
Yeah.
And you tried harder on the edge of photography. You tried on the edge of your business.
Yeah.
With it. That's my thought on that one. But Don Grills, what a fabulous hairdresser, man! Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
So many
and he was an amazing educator. Had a thriving salon there, but it was also about that. Like Don, and if you remember Elmer Olson, he was out of Regina,
yeah.
and he was always, when an international. Well, I'm not so sure if it was international, not because he didn't, only that I don't know, but he was always up in there when we were big in competition work, and his eye was amazing, and he ended up. I followed him for a while, and he ended up becoming one of the head model recruiters for Ford Agency in New York.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you remember Eric Fisher,
Oh,
Beautiful
very well.
Reasons,
Yeah.
and then obviously that he started up the whole Chatters and Tommy Gunn chain.
Yeah.
And so I had, that was an amazing time of our life because everybody, and you hit it nailed right in the head. Everybody was hungry, and you'd work all day long, and after hours, you'd get everybody together and you'd do creative sessions and come up with stuff that some of it you would never do, but it was just always about how did you push the envelope. And I think you just hit the nail on the head here. Was we were small enough not to be the biggest and big enough not to be the smallest, so you really thought you could push envelopes. So I thought that was just fun.
The other thing, Chris, that I think was so valuable in that era of ours, and I know that we try and bring it back with Surface, is that localized education that builds a family culture. Remember the Saskatchewan Hairdressers Association?
Yeah, I do very
Twice
well.
a year, they'd have the show at the Besborough Hotel.
Yeah.
And you'd get there, and there'd be 50 people in the audience. Sometimes there may be 200 there, or that group. And that type of connection, you don't see it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you go to a lot of the larger shows, and pardon me for this, but a dog and pony act.
Yeah.
With it, and it's missing. And it's an empathy that I've got for the new people entering our industry is how do they get grounded into something that's authentic?
Yeah. Yeah. And the other side of that, Wayne, what I can remember, I remember being there at those shows. I mean, and you're probably talking about the same time as we were, because neither one of us were teaching or we just had salons. We were there just as students watching. But what I remembered at the time was that was such a great time because it didn't matter who you were. And yes, people could be competition, but they still shared and they still hung around together and you still
Yep.
shared ideas. And I think that I'm not sure if that's exactly the same. And I don't want us to sound like the old gray haired dudes that are sitting around going, hey, back in the old days, but I think that there was a time when it was a little bit more open, from hairdresser to hairdresser, salon to salon, and just share, that you could, if I survived, you survived, and there was still a feeling of abundance.
Yeah. I'm seeing pockets of that in North America, really. The
Yeah.
worldwide is that you'll have certain pockets that they've got that real camaraderie, and I find that falls a lot around distribution, actually, which is based on education. So when
Yeah.
you've got a distributor that's really education based, and that sales consultant is, they can reach out, and all of a sudden they've got that network that they've pulled together. And we'll
Yeah.
do origins or great gathering programs in some of our pockets there, and
Yeah.
we get everybody is coming in and learning and that again. I don't find as much of that in larger metro areas.
Yeah. Do you that, but that's really culture based though, isn't it? Don't you,
Yeah.
don't you think that's kind of culture based? And I know that, I told you earlier, I was stalking you a bit, and I know that you had some things that you talked about what you do for, for not only how you made sure in the salon that everybody, you had a credo or a success, steps to success that you had, and then also life principles that you had. And from what I've gathered is you take that not only from the salon, but you also take that with you on the road in your culture and your business, to making sure that there is enough for everybody and you do educate everybody.
And when it comes up to principles and culture, I'll share three that I've shared every chance I get. And it was in the early 90s when I really took the risk to break away, move out on my own in different directions. The
Mm,
three words are awareness, responsibility, and process.
yeah.
And you can control only that which you're aware of. That which you're unaware of controls you. And it's non-judgmental awareness. And then the next, but awareness is knowledge. People say knowledge is power. It's not, it's a fuel.
Yeah, and I want to just jump on that for a second because I love what you just said. And I know that with all due respect, I know there's people that are out there that haven't talked about that. And if you have the knowledge, it can be power, but
Yes.
you've got to do something with it. And I think, is that what you're alluding to when you say
Exactly. That's
that
that's
you've
the
got to be
second
aware
one.
of it?
The second principle after awareness is responsibility.
Yeah,
And when you take responsibility for your thoughts and your action, your commitment to them rises, and so does your performance. And
yeah,
just let's take it back to the 10 most powerful two-letter words in the world. If it is to be, it's up to me.
yeah,
And now to fine tune that, the third word that I share we built everything with that is process. And the process is an action that either you take or you do not take on a daily basis.
yeah,
So with awareness and then responsibility, and then it's my process. And it's that process of action of taking or not taking it. And so many people get stopped at the responsibility part of it, and their process, they won't change it. So they sit there and spin their wheels and become frustrated. And I'll take that back to one of the other words you just shared was systems. And
hmm,
that was a key in the mid 1980s. Like when we first started in Saskatoon with sheer talent here, we had a
yeah,
team of 3. Within 1 year, we had 10. And within 3 years, we had 37 hairdressers in
yeah.
Saskatoon.
Yeah.
And at first, people would say, "Well, what'd you do?" And I went, "I don't know." And I didn't. That's
Yeah,
the thing is, I really don't know.
yeah,
But it was every Tuesday night was, and I remember the Jack Day at Jack's Hair Shack here in South.
yeah, for sure.
Every Tuesday night when I got work, he was my first job before we moved back to Humboldt. I mean, didn't you? There was family dinners. That didn't matter. Tuesday night was workshop night. Every Tuesday
Yeah,
night, you just loved it and you learned with it.
yeah,
And so I sat back down, and we were both working for the same manufacturer at that time. I got contracted to go to England. I'm meeting with Arthur Long in LA at that time. And I'm sharing, he's asking me, he said, well, Wayne, what do you do? And I said, well, there's five things. There's really five keys of success, I believe. This is like 1987. And I said, there, get your chair full, communicate
Yep.
effectively, do great work, make sure your guests can take care of their hair at home, and rebook them.
Yeah.
And as corny as this sounds, he looked at me and he goes, Wayne, grab that napkin and write them down. And he says, do you have them written down anymore? I said, no, I don't. What's that? He says, those are principles that should be in every one of the programs that you teach or you coach. Those are principles that not only do you live them in your salon, but you write them. And that's one of the most valuable pieces of information I've ever gotten,
Yeah.
was to ink it, not think it.
Yeah.
And so building a system for success.
Yeah. And that's what got you where you are today.
Absolutely. And that became the foundation. And the other thing that I found is back in the 80s and working, people go like, oh, did I ever love that show? I saw you last year. It was great. I loved it. It was amazing. And I learned that my first question after that would be, how did it make your business better?
Yeah.
How did it
Yeah.
make your life better? Because the ultimate goal was I wanted to leave a positive impact rather than just, man, was that ever fun? That was the craziest thing I ever saw. And crazy
Yeah.
is good. You need that
Yep.
energy.
Definitely.
And so then I took that whole thought to systems. Same as you're going to have a system of eating, a system of exercise and working out. And we took it into, this was really cool. Came off the stage in one show, end of the 80s. Can't remember where the heck it was. I think it was a regional somewhere. And someone goes, well, I really like that, but how are you going to do that again?
Yeah.
Because I said I was a free form cutter. And my little voice lied, because it many times it lied. And it went,
Uh-huh.
well,
Hmm.
people really don't want the same thing twice. You can take it and you can kind of modify it. And then I just said, hey, Wayne, you got to be honest with yourself and identify there's only 5 haircuts in the world. That's it. Long one length, long layers with that, horizontal line, inverted line, and short layers.
Yeah.
And then a little voice in my head said, Wayne, those aren't very exciting names with that. How about some layers? We could do some layers for you. How about a bob? We could maybe
Yeah.
do a bob for
You
you.
can have it with your soap.
Yeah. So I put on my marketing brain and said, okay, we'll take long one length and we'll call it the edge. Long layers, we call freedom because it gives long hair freedom.
Mhm.
That bob line, we call it windswept. That inverted line, we call front and center. And then this one, many people have used, but we call it the crop.
Yeah.
And then we took everywhere from 3 to 5 steps to be able to create it. And that all started in the salon and through the 80s there. And then we adapted it into the company. We adapted it into teaching. So hairdressers knew what they sold.
Yeah.
And I changed the definition from a free-form cutter, and there's many amazing ones out there. But a free-form cutter is someone who really can't do the same thing twice. Love me or hate me for that. One of the two.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because we always used to say to people, okay, when you're doing the two sides of your haircut, which side is easier? And you'd say, is it the left side or is it the right side? And some people would say left and some people would say right. And I'd say, well, is it the first side or the second side? Because the second side's always the hardest side to cut because the first one you already did, So, but what I like that you're saying is if you have a system, at least you're going to get close, and we all know that there's no such thing as perfect.
No.
But if you can have somebody and you can have a system, whether it's cutting or front desk or whatever that is, it is a part of having a system of what you do and the discipline to do it the same continuously, that's what's going to keep your customers coming back.
And when you do have a system, that's what allows you to be able to be better.
Yeah.
Because when I say there's only 5 haircuts in the world, there's an unlimited amount of adaptation of them, of how they'll blend together and they'll move with their foundation. And the same thing in business. We have our Daymaker program that we've taught, and is that 5 steps. It's the greeting of a guest, the discovery process, engaging with them. How do you engage with them and teach with them, but become personal with them when you're working? How do you review and confirm what you did, and how do you rebook them? So it's taking that 5, and that's one of the things in our industry. You'll have a lot of manufacturers have brand managers. I don't want a brand manager. I don't want you to manage my brand. I want you to grow the salon. So we
Right.
have what's called SGM, Salon Growth Managers. And that's the
Yeah.
same principle that, we use within the salon, like you're saying, is having a system for it, is, how to make that coachable. And,
Yeah.
and it's sad but true. So many salons, their training program would even look like, oh, go watch him. He's really good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can only get as
Exactly.
good as him. And that might be really, really good, or her with it. But
Yeah.
I want people to be better than I am.
Yeah.
And if I have
Yeah.
principles to train on, then they can become better than me in those areas.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with you 100% there, Wayne. I might have said this before on one of the podcasts before, and I say it because it's true. But just to reinforce that point that you said, I'm not sure if you know Blair Singer, but Blair Singer, probably one of the finest teachers that are out there, really knows what is going on in the world, and also has been brought over to other countries just to help them review what their systems are about, so that they can teach better. And I can remember he was doing an interview with John Maxwell. Obviously for one of the
Yep.
finest leadership coaches in the world, and and he said to them, he said to John, I'm a bit concerned, because he said, I have all the material that I give to everybody, like you, Wayne, you systematize everything and you give it out to other people so that they can do that and become great at what they do. And he said, John, I'm concerned that they might not need me anymore, because if I've got all these systems and everything that I do, and if Blair is listening, which I doubt that he ever will, but nonetheless, he said to Blair, your job is to create leaders that are better than you are. So they will go away. They will come. And it's just like in our salons. Everything that I think, if they started a salon and you started your salon up, one of the biggest fears for salon owners, if you don't have your systems in place, is somebody's going to leave. But the reality is, everybody's going to leave at some point or another, because they're either going to leave because their spouse partner is moving, they're retiring, they die, God forbid. But everybody's going to leave, and I think that as in our industry, that's. Could you kind of speak to that on what's your thoughts on that, when people hold so dear to their people that they've got to stay with them and they can't grow?
But I'm going to use two things. I'll use an example of a little skip in my heart, which would have been about 1985, I think it was. We opened up our second location in the city, which was a bad choice anyway, because we didn't need two in the city. And the week before we opened it up, we had 6 of our top employees move across the street.
Oh,
That was $500,000 in sales
yeah,
moved across the street.
yeah. That would have
Um,
made your butt pucker.
Yeah, just a
Yeah,
little bit, just
yeah.
a little bit. Not as tight as my banker who gave me the loan, but the thing was, did it hurt yet? Did it crush? No, because we had built such a culture within the salon
Yeah,
that we maintained a large amount of those guests, but we did have a system to train with.
yeah,
So the associates had a system that they could step into. And quite frankly, I left no hard feelings with them.
yeah,
Every one of those people, I said, I truly, I wish you all the best with that. If the day comes where you decide you want to come back, let me know. Within 9 months, 3 people came back to us.
yeah, yeah,
And the other 3, they went in their different directions. But because they just found that the grass wasn't greener on the other side, but doesn't mean it shouldn't have been. It would have been great
yeah,
for them. But
yeah,
that one of the things I want to share on the story that you just shared leading into it with Blair Singer is there's a difference between systems and programs.
yeah, yeah,
And is so important, because a program has a beginning and it has an end. It's a cutting or a business program. A system has principles, but continually evolves with the times.
mm-hmm.
So how do you, for an example, with the 5 keys of success that we built our engagement of salon on, or the dynamics of our Daymaker program. In the early 2000s, as we moved into a green world, is how to adapt that and reinforce and speak to the consumer and adapt your values to quite simply being able to leave the earth a better place than we found it.
Yeah.
So, a system never is clean cut and dried. It always evolves.
Yeah. As human beings do,
Yeah,
mostly
exactly.
and hopefully.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point in there. So, because I know that's one of your key points that you have, which I think is, so necessary for right now, is about health and how do we keep the planet great.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, because I know did that something that evolved inside your company? Is that the way your company started? Because let's face it, Wayne, there's tons of people out there that do what I do and what you did, and I mean that, not that you're not doing it now, but move from in the salon, teaching worldwide, internationally, and then saying, hey, why don't I take all of that and let's start up a brand. Let's start a hair care brand, and that's a hell of a big step. So, can you just tell us a little bit about that and how did that come about?
Well, I became involved in a brand with my own name in the 90s. And as the world turned into a very high level of awareness of personal health and such, I moved away from that. Very successful in the salon, loved the teaching I was doing. And Deb and I were looking at semi-retirement. I was 50 years old when I started Surface. And I said, I started looking at personal health. I started training better than I had, eating better than I had. And when I started looking at personal health, I became aware of the potential toxins that were in products that we worked with day in and day out.
Yeah.
I had my first granddaughter. My daughter, Jackie, became the fourth generation in my family. She became a stylist with it. And I said to Deb, I want to study this a little bit more. Last thing I had in my mind was doing a company.
Yeah.
And I met with a couple of chemists. And one of the chemists, they said to me, this is kind of crazy. I'll never forget this, sitting across the table from in Toronto. And he says, Wayne, how many blow dries do you think you've ever done? A couple 100,000? I don't know. Because a lot of chemists, they're not real humorous. Not some might be, but most aren't. And he goes, there's no humor in that. I said, well, why? Oh. He says, do you realize you've inhaled everything that's evaporated in front of you? I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
So what should I be concerned of? And it took me years to be able to say this. He says, well, one thing is potentially polyvinyl propylene vinyl acrylic, like PVPVA.
Yeah.
The other thing, do you realize that hairdressers have a very high level of chronic fatigue? No. Second almost to truck drivers? No. And it was a lot of the gluten bases. Well, gluten is something you eat. He goes, well, that's something that also can have cross-contamination into your body in other ways. And I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And, I met with another one that raised cancer concerns. And this is really hokey because this will tell you that back in my generation, I'm driving back from the airport after meeting with one in the Midwest in the United States. And the song came because I was here, my brain's doing this. Somebody's got to do something about this. Somebody's got to do something about this. And Michael Jackson, his song Man in the Mirror came on.
Right.
And as hokey as that sounds, I was like, you know what? Let's take a look at this. So when I was 50, my wife was 49.
3 years ago.
3 years ago, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
We mortgaged our house. We mortgaged our lake home with it. Our kids quit what they were doing, jumped on board with us. And we did the most foolish business thing you'd ever dream of in your life with it. Still ran the salon. And the salon's running right now as we run. So that we had that financial end of it there, which is great.
Yeah.
But I told the company that we were working with, and we hired a group of chemists. We own all our own formulas. But I said, I don't want to know any costing of goods because they had this criteria. How much do you want this to cost? How much do you want this to cost? And we'll build towards it. And I came to them and I said, these are the ingredients that cannot be within our product. These are some of the ingredients that I see great benefit in within hair and that I'd like to see us work with, but I don't want to know until we've hit the perfect one.
Yep.
And that went on back and forth from the development to Saskatoon. People say, do you test on animals? No, only my family. You know, with that.
Because I don't want to harm animals.
Yeah, and our consulting guests within the salon and with it. And when we reached the perfect formulas of our base products that we launched with back in 2008, I call them the kids, but grown adults, and my wife
Yeah.
were sitting in the office, and the company called us and they told us the numbers that we were have to work with, and they came in at 5 times as much as we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And we looked at each other and said, "Hey, we're a family. We can work lean and mean." And in 2008, we brought Surface to the table, and the average retail product back then was $28.
Yeah.
And it was a battle we fought, though, Chris. I'll tell you, because people thought, okay, if you are clean and green, are you going to perform?
Right.
And that was the biggest thing. And then when people went, "Wow," it all took off.
Yeah.
So in showing that dynamics, again, it goes, awareness, responsibility, and process. We changed our process a lot in there. And then the next thought was, okay, well, I do not want our Surface community to have to pay for business building. If you're going to partner with us and put us on your shelf and share our culture, we're going to provide you with the complete business building. And we launched our advocate program back then. And we also launched our insider program back then. So on a quarterly basis, we present complete marketing programs, complete trainings on the 5 keys of success, complete elements within the Daymaker program with it. So that as long as you can jump on your screen and become virtual, we can help guide your business.
I bet we have something in common. I have this love-hate relationship. I hate paying for something that I'm not using. I hate working in a small, cramped box, yet I love working in a cool salon that impresses my clients, and I love the culture and synergy of a team while enjoying the freedom of being my own boss. You too? What if all that was available to you at the salon you rent from? Meet Artist on Go, a game-changing way to rent salon space. With Artist on Go, you only pay for the time you're behind the chair. You can choose a salon that fits your vibe, location, and amenities. With Artist on Go, you're a part of a stylist community, not hustling alone. Plus, you get to enjoy perks like clean towels and back bar supplies. Check out Artist on Go, built for stylists serious about their clients and growing their brand without the hassles of managing a space. Here's the kicker. You can save more than 50% on your rent. To find out more, go to bit.ly/artistongocb. That's bit.ly/artistongocb. Yeah. Well, that first of all, that's awesome, and I think that's always. I think that if you can find ways that you can make other people grow, then excuse me, then you'll grow along with them.
Absolutely.
Now, so along this way, because right now I bet you anybody that's listening go, well, then all I've got to do is just mortgage my house and put that out there, and I'm just going to go out and start my own product line. So there must and I haven't talked about this to many people, but I think it was, I can't remember, in the 80s, might have been sometime right around the same time. I had a gentleman that both you and I know that was out of Alberta, and he had won this huge jackpot in Vegas, and then he wanted to start a company. And from long story short, they asked me if I'd come on as our artistic director, and I was going to. We had it all planned, and I went to Redken and I said, here's my resignation, and the person who was in charge of education at that time went to the general manager, and then, mutual friend, I think you would remember, John, and and he said, what? And they said, well, what's going to happen? And he said, well, just go back, tell Chris, ask him what he wants. And that wasn't my intent, but just to give the point that at that time, I was going to go into a product line again. And just for those of you that are listening, I'm doing the sign of the cross here, that I didn't do it. I stayed because that company went down within, I think within a year or two, it went down the tubes. But so it's not easy to start a business, particularly what you've done. So was there hardships? What were some of the, it's not all that easy. So what can you tell us about in that process of doing it
Yeah,
that might have made you stay awake a couple of nights?
a couple of things, Chris. I think that any business, and I'll apply it to this one, or any business you go into, is being able to roll up your sleeves. And as an example, when you get off the stage and everybody leaves the room, you get down, take your own brush, and clean the hair off the stage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, you do whatever it takes to make it happen and to help people grow. And the travel was intense. And when we would open up a new door, for the first 2 years, I personally would make a phone call to that salon and welcome them.
Yeah.
I would give them my personal number to it. And I use that as an example of however you do it now, but for personal connection, just care more than other people think is wise.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's that needs to be able to happen. And also you live within your means. And that's something that Deborah, my wife, and I've done all of our life. And it's just, you live within those means and operate your business within those means. And she was our CFO when we started. She went to university for psychology. But the family did it all, which is a good thing to put up with me for all these years.
I was going to say that the wives that do that, they might need that. Hey, Rita, you got to take a psychology degree.
But in having said that, I was in Edmonton. I was going to do a program for the Estelle Academy.
Yeah.
Got into the elevator in the Delta Hotel, and I looked on the wall. I read it and smiled from ear to ear. It said, "Work hard your 8 hours today, because someday you can be a manager, own your own business, and work 12."
Yeah. Hear, hear.
Yeah.
Hear, hear.
What are you really willing to put into it? And then the other thing that, I take a look at what we did. I'll do a couple rights, and I'll do what we could have done better with that. And I don't know about the better part, but we were really careful in hiring the right people.
Yeah.
And right on early. And our top leaders today, when we would meet with them, and if we really wanted to bring them on, we would say we needed to have dinner with their family.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason we would do that is just to be able to test the waters for the support structure. Because yes, they were going to have to go to the airport at 4:00 in the morning. And yes, they were going to have to do this. And that we wanted to bring people on, and we've done a very good job of it. Our leaders have such a good family support at home with it. That was it. When it comes to hardships, I tell you what, going through COVID was unbelievable.
Yeah. What was that for your business? What happened there? Because that's
Unbelievable. Well, the first thing that I thought of was that our world is based on personal face-to-face contact.
Wayne, can I just stop you there for just to give? I want to give this some context. So, I mean, you had your first company that you went with, the Wayne Grund, and then you started Surface. So, Surface started in what year would you say Surface has now started and going?
2008.
2008. So now you had that 2008, and then you got a spread in there till when we hit COVID, right?
Right.
So now, okay, good. So you've been open for a bit. Everything, you went through some lumps and wrinkles and chinks in the armor, etc. And now everything seems to be going really smooth. Bang, COVID hits.
We had got to a place where we had now established distribution across the United States with it. That was really tough, getting people to believe into you. And there's no salon owner that wakes up in the morning and goes, "Oh, I just want a new brand this morning."
Yeah.
And so we got to a really comfortable place, and people really trusted us. And then we're projecting our product out a year in advance. So our warehouse is full, our orders are in with it, and the world shuts down. When I look back, I'm so thankful for that learning experience, because it proved to me that if you take care of people, people will take care of you.
Take care of you. Yeah.
And that week we jumped on, because we had already built a pretty strong social network. We had built a strong virtual education platform online, but we shouted out on Facebook, and I put a message out there on crisis control, what to do in your business, a couple of key points and such. And then 5 days a week, 9:00 Central Time, I would be on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and two of my top people would be on Tuesdays and Thursdays with that. And we would do anywhere from a 30-minute to an hour. And one would be cutting, somebody would do color, someone would do
Yeah.
business. And then on Friday morning, I would do coffee talk.
Yeah. Coffee.
And what coffee talk was is me sitting at my kitchen table. We'd pull the table apart. Deborah would crawl underneath the table in between, with the phone in the holder with that, and click it on. Within 2 weeks on Friday mornings, we were having 10,000 people join on Facebook.
Wow.
And it was just sitting, having a coffee, and we would talk about some things in communication, some things about in attitude. And how do we work with that? You can't just tell a person that, got positive attitude. Oh, okay, I'm positive now. No, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
So it was so rewarding. And we went into our warehouse and we took every single cape that we had in that warehouse with it, and we shipped them to our salons with it. We took every single 2-ounce travel size and all of our foils, and we shipped them to the salons with the request that they would give them to their the first point of contact, the supports within there, the nurses, the doctors, the firemen in that. So we helped them give back. It took us 2 weeks to be on board with salons to be able to do your curbside pickup support process with that. Then myself and our team, we reached out to our key accounts saying, hey, if you're not staying in contact with your teams, you need to. And hey, how about if we join your team meeting? So at least 2 to 3 team meetings a week, we would be in our offices quarantined, but we'd virtually join a salon staff meeting somewhere in the world. And, that you'd never want that ever again, obviously, but that grew our business like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
And then to my knowledge, we were the first manufacturer, because we went to our distributors and we said, okay, as soon as a pocket is opening up, we want to do a 20% discount on a $2,000 purchase just to get them re-energized. With that. Pretty soon you saw, more distributors get on board, more manufacturers get on board. And, people just want to know you care.
Right.
But it's more than that. You just got to care authentically yourself.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you hit a key word right there. That's word authentic, is that people can tell when you're bullshitting them, They know you. They've got really good bullshit meters, and if you start doing that to them, then they don't believe you and they don't trust you anymore. But if you, like you said, if you did it, I want to help, they'll know the difference. And when you're authentic in that, your message is congruent with them, and congruency just builds loyalty and trust.
Yeah, it was in our whole the surface, our core family, our employees, which is really our core family. They just pulled together so tight in being able to do whatever they could to help the people within their marketplaces. Just forever grateful about what they were able to impact that they left at that time.
Yeah. It's a wild ride when you have to go through that. And I think everybody, I said it earlier, but I think everybody's butt puckers just a little bit when they think back to 2008 and or back to COVID, I should say. And
the trickle effect from that, Chris, is so evident still. Like people go, what do you mean? It's been like 4 years ago now. But what happened was so many salons and stylists forgot their core principles of guest service and success. And we found people all of a sudden they weren't rebooking. They were grateful to have somebody in the church, so they weren't rebooking the guests like they should. They weren't doing a written recommendation on their retail like they should. And the average individual was putting on excuses on the economy, on the new habits of the consumer. Well, who created them? The stylist created that, and who's going to create that new habit again? And, that's where we really had our noses in the trenches to help people realize it's almost like going back to the late 1970s, early 80s, and helping people go, okay, this is, you tell people what you're using, why you're using it, how you're using it, and you're making this difference. This is how you're going to recommend their next look. When you come in next time, what we're going to do for you is, in recoaching that whole structure.
And I think you've just made my brain kind of spin on a couple of things that, and you always talk about it. I think that if you, whenever I talk to people about, and they say, well, I don't sell or I have a hard time selling or whatever. And I say, well, look at the end game, what's most important? And they eventually get down to family or the people that are around them immediately, what the words that you were talking there, and I wrote down the words harmful act, because I think that sometimes that's what people think they're doing when they're selling. And they say, well, I can't say sell, it's recommended. That's all total caca. There's the same thing. Life is sales.
Right.
If you've been in any relationship, somebody had to do some selling. And the reality is life is sales. So if you want to have an end game where you can take care of your family and look after them, you've got to think about that, because you're not doing harmful acts to people when you're selling a service or upselling on a service or a product. What you're doing is you're just finding that need they have, filling it, and you're just the one that does it. So when people complain to me about, and we could go on ad nauseum about products that are in grocery stores and etc., but I don't want to go down that avenue. But I will say then, it's funny, and I didn't come up with this. I mean, you might have said this, and it got passed down the things, and I picked it up finally. But somebody said to me one time that when we were talking about having a discussion about diversion and products in grocery stores and drugstores, they said, do your damn job when you're in the salon, and you won't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And so.
I'll add one thing onto that too, Chris, because I just really like the way you took the conversation there, and it's looking for opportunities to serve.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Really, really look for an opportunity to serve you, and how many ways can you serve them? One of the biggest disservices I ever did to the industry, and I wish I could redo it again, was, after I represented within Redken and Hair World in '84, Modern Salon did an interview, and they said, well, what does it take to be successful? And they were using our salon as an example. And I said, the most successful people, they're naturals. And they titled this big thing, Wayne Grund, the naturals. And it says, naturally, the guest comes in the salon, your book is already full, but your brain just goes, oh my goodness, she didn't book for it, but I'll date myself. Now that perm would be perfect for her. The color on top of that is perfect for her. Oh, these new products are perfect for her. And your brain just explodes with opportunity. And you've got that natural charisma that you connect with it. And then, I read that about a year later, and it's when our salon was thriving, but we had put in those steps of training, the systems, is you don't have to be that natural, because you've had so many people say this in the audience, I'm just a quiet person. I just can't do that with it. Well, you can just train. There's a time when, somebody that's training can only lift a 10-pound dumbbell. But if they train the right way, pretty soon it's 12 or 15 pounds. So when I take a look at that, yes, there is something of hiring the natural, but whether you're a salon of 1 or you're a salon of 51, identify the key points of training on how to look for opportunities. That's the key.
Yeah. I love what you were saying there, Wayne, about the opportunities, because they're there. I did a program this last week, and there was a young kid that was there, and I was sitting with, we're doing a train the trainer program, and this young kid gets up, and Luis Riveras, as I never forget his name because of the way he pronounced it. And I was talking to one of his from his leadership group, and she leaned over and says, do you know that he does $250,000 a year? And I went, so you mean revenue? And she said, well, no, not exactly. That's not exactly what his take home is, because of our pay structure, the way that it is, once you get to this certain point, you get 70% of that. I mean, I had never heard of that. My business sense went, that was not one I never heard of, but I'm going to leave that alone. But the point is that if you're just looking for opportunities, you could sit back and you could say, look, I'm settling. I'm okay with that. And that's okay too. And I want to be clear for anybody who's listening or watching, is that that's not the benchmark. That's just what he wanted. And he knows that he can do it and did it. So whether it's, you said it at, I want to generate 75 or 100 or 250 or whatever it is, you've just got to be looking for it. And all it takes is just a little word, hey, I I noticed that you had this XYZ problem, and if you'd like to look like, ABC, here's the solution. And bingo, because people won't, if they think it's a sale, they'll run. But if you tell them what they're going to be able to look like or be or have at the end of it, then they'll go, well, that's what I want.
Yeah.
And I just take my hat off to people that really go out there and show our industry what they can really earn in our business.
Yeah, I got a question for you on this, Chris, and be happy to use it with the next individual. Or you running with this question? There is.
I got my pen handy.
Got your pen handy, buddy? Ink it, don't think it.
Ink it,
Would you
don't
rather
thinker.
be happy or comfortable? For the listener, make sure they got it. Would you rather be happy or comfortable? Which one?
Yeah, first of all, it's a damn good question, right? I think, and I'm just going to take a wild stab, and I got a 50% chance of getting it right here.
50-50, man.
It's 50-50, but I think that if you're happy, then, and I make sure I do all the things that I'm happy at, I'm going to be getting the things that are going to make me comfortable, and then I have both. Am I close?
Check mark. There is no wrong answer.
Yeah.
But I want to be around people who want to be happy.
Yeah.
People are happy when they make other people happy.
Yeah.
Comfortable means it's usually your brain is making an excuse for you going, okay, things are good enough. But there's always one over pops up over here. Go, you know what? Golly, I can do more for people. Right?
Yeah.
And, when looking for opportunities, there was just a snippet story on this to it. Gary the waiter has become a famous story within the surface world. And he's a waiter in Las Vegas at a restaurant. Average restaurant. This gentleman at that time was 76 years old. We walked in, and I won't go through the whole story. Time's going short on it, but the wow factor was unbelievable. His silver hair, white shirt, pants, biggest smile in the world, going, your name, Wayne and Deborah, welcome to New York, New York. This will be the most fabulous dinner that you could ever imagine. I am so happy to serve you. The experience goes beyond that. We were going to go in. We'd have probably shared an appy like we did. We'd have probably had one bottle of wine. We'd have had shared a dessert, and we'd have left. I had a presentation for our trainers the next day. Well, we ended up with 2 appetizers, a bottle of 2012 Cab Sav duck horn. We ended up with the most amazing meal. We both had the creme brulee dessert, the way he described it. Canceled our dinner the next night at Bellagio. Went to rebook back with him in there. Asked her his area. His area was booked until 8 o'clock at night. Well, 8 o'clock at night, I'm getting ready to go to bed. We changed our plans. We went back, and I'm one of those guys that will look at an appointment book. And he's not going. The rest of there was empty except for Gary.
Yeah.
And the reason is Gary looked for opportunities to make people happy. And if that's something I can just really share with service providers who feel they may be timid or such, just look to serve people and serve them in all their needs.
I love it. I'm going to give you one back, and then I'm going to run to rapid fire here. Because I love what you were saying about being happy. And I went in, and I haven't been working out like you have. But so I went into this when I was living in Manhattan, and I went down to this clothing store where it was getting ready to go to a big class. And I wanted to make sure that I had something that was kind of cool. So there's a store there that all they cater to is the rock stars. So I went in, I figured I got what I want, sort of. I just want to get a t-shirt. So I went into t-shirt, and I said, look, you probably don't have stuff that fits me. But I said, do you by chance maybe have a t-shirt or something cool that I could put under the jacket that I already have? And he said, oh, look there's the owner right over there. He's the same size as you are. We've got tons of stuff in here. I want to hear what this girl did to me. She says, okay, come, let me take it. I want to bring this over to you. And she pulled out some t-shirts and I went and tried them on. And I said, well, I don't like those, but this one I really like. And I want to catch you what she said to me. Okay, I'm going to take that over and I'm going to put that on the happy pile. and then I tried on. She said, "Listen, this is something. I've got this thing downstairs, and I have to tell you that we've only got one of these. It's one of a kind, and it's 70% off. I can bring it up for you if you want." I said, "Oh yeah." So he brought it up, hand studded or like metal studded jacket all the way through. put it on, leather, beautiful feeling. I said, oh, I love it, and it fits me. And she said, so let's put it on the happy pile. And she did this. My happy pile went from a T-shirt to $4,000
I
just
love it.
because the way that she was telling the story. You can add that into one of yours. So,
I will. And you got a happy smile, I bet, at the
and
end.
I had a happy smile. Well, and I must admit, I phoned home and I said, Rita, it's $4,000. You okay if I spend this? And like you, she becomes. I made sure that I got permission. Anyway, time for rapid fire. So, Wayne, what turns you on in the creative process?
In the creative process, cutting, like shaping, molding.
Love it. And what stifles creativity for you?
What stifles it? A cloudy day.
Oh, a thing in life in general that you love the most.
Fishing.
And what in life do you dislike the most?
Really cold weather.
The reason why I left Saskatchewan. I thought you were going to say not fishing. The thing that you love the most about our industry,
People.
the thing you dislike the most about our industry.
I got to do more than one word. Sorry.
Okay.
People who have arrived.
I
And what I
gotcha.
mean by that
I
is
do.
they can be positive people, but mentally they've just arrived.
Yeah, yeah. A person that you admire the most.
My wife.
Love it. Your most prized possession.
Oh my goodness. I can't be very rapid on that.
Oh,
Let
that's
me
okay. Give it a
think as a
thought.
possession. Um, our home in Mexico,
Oh, where?
Bucerias,
Where is that?
little town just north of Puerto Vallarta.
I love that area. A person you wish you could meet, living or dead.
Person I wish I could meet, living or dead. Oh my goodness. Um, Actually, and I'm just going to have to make this happen somewhat, but Ryan Holiday, the
Oh,
author of Stoicism, brilliant messages he shares.
isn't it funny how I find so many people, if I get hooked on something, all of a sudden it comes up and I've been researching Stoicism and I love the whole side of it. So interesting. Something that people don't know about you.
Don't know about me. Well, if you're close to you would know it, but outside, don't know about me. Let me think. Everybody, pretty open book. What's that? Oh, I love to snow ski. They might know that. Oh, my favorite time spent is with family. Friends would know
Love it.
that, but industry people wouldn't. It's family
Yeah.
time.
If you had a month off, where would you go? What would you do?
Oh my goodness. A month off. Yeah, if I had to pick just one place, it'd be down to Bucerias to the condo.
There you go. And a thing that terrifies you.
Terrifies me. Um, Quiet people in the world under challenge.
Oh, here it comes. Favorite curse word.
Shit.
Okay. Favorite comfort food.
Oh, comfort food. Oh, beautiful steak on the barbecue.
Oh, yeah. Charcoal,
Yeah.
charcoal or propane?
Charcoal.
Yes, we can be friends. Something in the industry that you haven't done, and I don't know what the hell this would be, but something in the industry you haven't done, but you want to.
Oh my goodness, that's a big question. I've got no idea. Um, oh, that I want to. It'd be really neat, but I won't invest the time. I wish I had magical hands with long hair like Martin Parsons.
I like Marty Party. Love it.
Yeah.
God bless you, Martin.
Yeah.
If you had one do over in life, what would
One
it be?
over in life. Um, what would have it been? I think I'd have taken the time. No, I don't think. I know it would have been. It would have been when I had left Redken in the early 90s to take more time, like I did in the early 2000s, to identify the company I wanted to build.
Right.
Because at that time, I just, you wanted to have a company, but I didn't have the purpose in mind behind it.
Mm.
It was good enough people, but the purpose wasn't there.
Yeah.
And it was basically like, you'll still see a lot of people that will go to a private label company, put their label on it and put it on their shelf, and wish everybody success with it. But that real purpose and culture, when that
Yeah.
came to me emotionally, and my family in 2008, that was just such a turning point. So if I could have did
Yeah.
that 10 years sooner, yeah.
There you go. Love it. Okay. Tomorrow, you couldn't do hair, couldn't have anything to do with it in any way, shape, or form. What would you do?
Go fishing.
There you go. Okay. And I've got one last question for you. But before I do, Wayne, you've got so many things that you can help people with. And if people had to get a hold of you, want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you, your products? What do they do? Where do they go?
Um, Two ways actually that they give you, depending what they're more comfortable with. Is one, the handle on Instagram, Wayne Grund, Wayne.Grund, or anything through Surface Air. Our website's phenomenal. As a pro, jump on, register as a pro, put a message in there going, hey, chatted with, I listened to Wayne and Chris, I'd like that, and our admin will put them straight to me. I'll reach out to them.
Love it. Love it. Okay, here we go. Last one. If you had one wish for our industry, what would it be?
I wish I would have magic dust to sprinkle on top to help everybody believe in themselves and what they have to offer. And
Boy.
many people do already, but the reason I say that is belief. That becomes the foundation for people for looking opportunities to serve.
Yeah. And I'll bet you, Wayne, that there's a lot of people out there that we think have that magic dust, but yet they still doubt themselves and so on. So I tell you, if I could do anything, if I could do anything to make that belief and help manufacture that dust, I would be first in line to help you with that one. But my friend, you give up your time willingly to be on Headcases, and I can't thank you enough. I thank you for your friendship. I thank you for what you've done for our industry, and I thank you for all the education you provided everybody.
Chris, thank you so much. It's great to catch up with you, and thank you for sharing all the words and the life stories of the amazing people in our industry. And I wish the best to everybody.
Yeah,
May God bless.
Thank you. Thank you. Cheers. Thanks again for watching this episode, and if you liked what you heard, remember to smash that like or follow button, depending on your preferred platform. And make sure to share it with anyone you know that might be a fellow Headcase. Headcases is produced by Cut Action Media, with Marjorie Phillips doing the planning parts, Lee Baran on the video bits, and Adrian Taverner mixing the audio jazz.